Welcome to a presentation on Fair Use and Protection of Intellectual Property for Educators by Jennifer Lipton. What is fair use? Fair use explicitly allows the use of copyrighted materials for educational purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. How do I determine fair use? Rather than listing exact limits of fair use, copyright law provides 4 standards for determination of the fair use exemption. None of these factors alone constitutes fair use. Even though materials may be copied for educational purposes, the other standards must be met. Unfortunately, these are not exactly crisp and clear guidelines. Nevertheless, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Number 1. Purpose of use. Copying and using selected parts of copyrighted works for specific educational purposes qualifies as fair use, especially if the copies are made spontaneously, are used temporarily, and are not part of an anthology. Number 2. Nature of work. For copying paragraphs from a copyrighted source, fair use easily applies. For copying a chapter, fair use may be questionable. Number 3. Proportion and extent used. Duplicating excerpts that are short in relation to the entire copyrighted work or segments that do not reflect the essence of the work is usually considered fair use. Number 4. Effect on the potential market. If there will be no reduction in sales because of copying or distribution, the fair use exemption is likely to apply. This is the most important of the 4 tests for fair use. Does fair use protect educators? And the answer is yes, fair use does protect educators. Educators need to make better use of their fair use rights under copyright law. The Code of Best Practices in Fair Use for Media Literacy Education clarifies confusion regarding fair use and encourages the use of media to promote student progress. Some general fair use information. Students may use portions of lawfully acquired copyrighted works in their academic multimedia projects with proper credit and citations. They may retain them in personal portfolios as examples of their academic work. Students and teachers must include on the opening screen of their programs and on any printed materials that their presentation has been prepared under fair use exemption of the U.S. copyright law and are restricted from further use. What should teachers do? Teachers have a moral obligation to practice integrity and trustworthiness. Just as they expect students to refrain from cheating on tests and from taking others' belongings at school, teachers should honor the law when it comes to fair use and copyright. Thus, teachers should not only protect themselves from legal liability, but should also model honesty and truthfulness by knowing when and what may be copied for educational use. For the other part of our presentation, protecting intellectual property. Educators and students are publishing work in public settings. This content is available for many to see. Educators and students need to know how to protect their work, and they must also decide how others can use their work. Creative Commons. Creative Commons works to increase the amount of creativity, cultural, educational, and scientific content in the commons, the legal body of work that is available to the public for free and legal sharing, use, repurposing, and remixing. Creative Commons for educators. Anyone can create a Creative Commons license. The creator can choose from the following licenses. The first type of license is attribution. You let others distribute, display, and perform your copyrighted work if they give credit how you describe. Then, share alike. You allow others to distribute derivative works only under a license identical to the license that governs your work. Non-commercial. You let others copy, distribute, display, and perform your work and derivative works based upon it, but for non-commercial purposes only. And finally, no derivative works. You let others copy, distribute, display, and perform only verbatim copies of your work, not derivative works based upon it. Conclusions. Using internet resources, teachers can find ways to show their resourcefulness as learning managers and to practice honesty as models for tomorrow's citizens. This concludes my presentation. Please see the slide here for the resources and references used to create this slideshow.